Okay, hi everybody. I'm going to run through really quickly the rigid pendulum assignment, specifically the setup for Maya and all of the things you need to get rolling on this. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly, so you may need to watch the recording over again. I've got a few tools running as well. You'll see a floating menu bar for a key tracking tool, which allows you to see what buttons I'm pressing as I press them for some of the camera control stuff. I'll call that out as it shows up. So let's get started. You should see the class page floating there with, right now I'm in the content folder in rigs. And you'll see that rigid pendulum assignment over here. I've got my downloads folder. So I'm going to download that rigid pendulum rig that we're going to be using. And then I'm also going to go to scripts and I'm going to download BH Ghost as well. Now, those two things I don't want to use there. I'm going to put them in their proper place. So the rigid pendulum rig, I'm going to go ahead and cut that. And I'm going to go to Documents, Maya. I'm going to go to Projects, Default, Assets. So anything that I use over and over again, I'm going to put in this Assets folder. And you can there's that rigid pendulum rig. And then the script, this BH Ghost script, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go cut this. And I'm going to go Documents, Maya. But this one here, I'm just going to go to this scripts folder at the very top, Documents My, and I'm going to put it in there. So you'll see this bhghost.mel. Inside of the bhghost, let me just paste that. You'll see that there's the bhghost.mel, and then there's also this icon and icon 2. Those icons go into your Maya and the, in this case, instead of going in the scripts folder here, they're going to go into the version of Maya that you're working with, prefs, icons, and I'm going to put that BH Ghost icon there so that when I'm using the tool, I can find that stuff. So that's where I place those two things, the BH Ghost and the character rig, the rigid pendulum rig. So now that I've got those things in the right locations, I'm going to go ahead and jump into Maya. So for Maya, I've got a brand new scene and the assignment description. Where are those assignment descriptions? There they are, assignment descriptions. So there's that rigid pendulum assignment. I'm going to go ahead and pull up that assignment description here just so I've got the information handy. So one of the things I'm going to do is I want to set my scene to the correct length. So I'm going to go into Maya here and I'm just going to set my time slider to 120 frames long. And just grab this and pull this out. I'm going to go ahead and say File, Save Scene As, and I'm going to name it properly based on how you're supposed to name this stuff. So now I'm working in my cloud-based storage location here. So in my Scenes folder, I'm going to make sure I'm saving it as a Maya ASCII, and I'm going to call this Latour, my last name, underscore my first name, David, PM, or RP, I believe, for Rigid Pendulum, V00. And you can see I've already got one saved there. So actually, let's just do this. 000. There we go. So my scene is named correctly. My scene length is set to the correct length. I'm going to go here and I'm just going to tap the space bar. And again, you can see that showing what I use, what key I use there. I'm going to go Panel, Orthographic, Side View to get to a side view here. And I'm just going to pull back a little bit. I'm using Alt right mouse button click to move, and then also Alt and middle mouse button click to pan my camera around. I'm going to turn on this resolution gate so that I can see the actual framing of my scene. And let's go ahead and reference in that character rig. So I'm going to go File, and I'm going to pull up my reference editor. And so that's under File, Reference Editor to pull up this window here. I'm going to click this little button here to say, hey, let's create a new reference. And I'm going to navigate to that asset, that rigid pendulum asset. There it is. I'm going to go ahead and use namespaces here. And I'm just going to say, use the selected namespace as parent. And I'm going to say, give it an A. And that's mostly just keep the names of the nodes on the rig short. So reference. And so now in my reference editor, you should see there's that pendulum rig, that A namespace. I look in here and there's that pendulum. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my character up nice and close. Like that, give myself enough space for it to move. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and lock my camera down so that I don't accidentally move it. So now, see, I'm not moving my camera, so it's framed it up. So I'm all ready to start animating the rigid pendulum. I'm going to do a couple other little things just to make my life easier. I'm going to turn on masking on everything except NURBS curves, which is what I'm going to use to animate with. If you don't see those little icons, maybe you've got this line nested here, so you just click that out and you turn off everything except that. And I'm also going to go into my show menu and I'm going to say, hey, viewport, don't show me anything. So I'm going to say show none. And I'm going to say show viewport. And I'm going to tear off this menu by clicking on that double line. And I'm going to say, I want to see NURBS curves and I want to see polygons. I'll keep all this other stuff down here. But those are the only two types of objects that I really want to see. Window outliner. So here's my rigid pendulum in the scene. Here's the geo. Hit 3 to smooth that geo. There we go. Just so it looks nice and smooth. Okay, so now I'm all set. I've got my character rig referenced into the scene. I've got it saved with the correct name. The file length is correct. I'm going to go and click on this little gear here, chasing the guy, to pull up my preferences window time slider. I just want to make sure that my playback speed is set to 24 FPS times 1, not play every frame, because that's going to make it playback really fast. 24 FPS will allow me to see sort of my animation in real time. And now I'm ready to get started on animating. To select the rigid pendulum, you just left mouse button click. This straight line here controls the body, the main part of the pendulum. And this circle here controls the tail. So I'm going to select that main body. And whenever you select something in Maya, if you have your channel box open here, you should see the name of the object you have selected and the channels for it. You'll notice the tail, it only has rotate X. You can't animate it any other way. Whereas this part has translates and rotates all available. So I'm ready to start animating. I'm going to go ahead and turn on automated keyframes here. So that way, anytime I move something that has keys on it, it's going to automatically key it for me. I'm going to select the main body control. I'm going to, at frame 0, just hit S to key. And I'm going to go to frame 24. And I'm going to move this character over, and to turn on move mode with something selected, I just hit the W key. And that shows up that manipulator icon. You can resize that manipulator with plus and minus. To sort of change the size of it. I'm going to grab that blue handle, the Z axis, and I'm just going to move it over about here. And I want to make sure I give enough room for the tail to swing and still be visible within the scene. So I'm going to go like that. So I've set a key here. And because I had auto key turned on at frame 24 when I moved it, it keyed it there. And if I scrub along the timeline, left mouse button, click and hold and drag, you'll see my animation play. Now, there's a couple of other things that I need to have happen with this animation to sort of meet the criteria for the assignment. Window, animation editor, graph editor. And with that main body animation control selected, you'll see the curve show up, this translate Z curve. And I'm just going to grab this handle here, left mouse button, drag on it to grab that key. And you'll see the two tangent handles show up. I'm going to grab this tangent handle here, and I'm just going to move it so it's an arc like this. Now, whenever you're looking in the graph editor, it's essentially a representation with a line of movement. In this case, the movement in the Z-axis. A steep curve means fast movement. A shallow curve means slower movement. So by manipulating this tangent handle here, I've turned it from an animation before where it started slow, sped up in the middle, and then slowed back down again at the end. And instead, I'm going to do this where it starts out even slower, speeds up steadily, and then suddenly comes to a hard stop at frame 24. And that's one of the requirements for the assignment, is I need that type of animation on the body. So if I've done that successfully and I hit play here, you'll see the pendulum comes to a hard stop. And then there's a bunch of time afterwards. That's where I'm going to be animating that tail. So that's the first part. I've got the animation on the tail and I'm all set. But you know what? I'm going to need BH Ghost for the next part of it here. I could use Maya's built-in ghosting for this, but I don't find that it works particularly well. I'm going to use BH Ghost instead. So because I have BH Ghost in my scripts folder there, if I go back here and you'll see under Maya scripts, you can see I put BH Ghost .mel in that location. Most scripts in Maya, once you've got it in the correct folder, you just have to open up Maya and you go ahead, and I'm going to pull up my script editor here, and I'm just going to type rehash to say, hey, go ahead and check if there's any new scripts. I'm going to hit this, run that script. And it ran it. And then to test this working, if I just type BHGHOST, so the name of that script there, and hit play, it launches the script. Now, I don't want to have to do this every time. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take that piece of text there, left mouse button, click and drag, and I can just middle mouse drag it onto my shelf and say, make a mel button. And now I've got a button there that every time I click it, it will launch the BH Ghost tool. So let me do that. Click, and there's that BH Ghost tool. Now, a fun thing about BH Ghost too is if I select something and hit BH Ghost, it will already be in there. So if I go here, Window, Outliner, there we go, click, and I'm going to grab that ball geometry because that ball geometry is normally not selectable from the viewport because I have selection masking on. No, because the actual character rig has selectability turned off. So you actually have to select it in the outliner. But I've got it selected, that ball geometry, and I'm going to hit BH Ghost. And now if I open up this here, you'll see that mesh is already included in there. So how BH Ghost works, you can watch the tutorial video from the creator of the tool to sort of fully understand how it functions. But broad strokes is I just need to make sure I go show, and in the viewport, I want to turn on strokes because BH Ghosts are essentially strokes. And if I hit Ghost, it'll draw a line on that frame, sort of showing the position of the object that is in the ghosting tool. Now, why that's important, why that's useful for me, is as this character is moving away, in order to create the sense that this tail has mass, I'm going to have it trail behind, sort of resisting the change in movement. And having a visual marker that allows me to do that accurately is really helpful. So I'm going to go here to like frame, I don't know, frame 10, and I'm going to rotate, in my rotate mode. So I turn on that rotate mode by hitting the E with that thing selected, and I'm just going to rotate it in X. And basically, the body has started to move away, but the ball of the rigid pendulum is sort of like, no, I don't want to go. I'm happy where I am. I'm resisting change because I have mass. And so as he goes away, it stays in that position. But I don't want it swinging backwards in anticipation. So I'm going to put another key here to kind of keep it on that spot. So as he moves away, it doesn't swing back. But it's still swinging back a little bit here. I could add another key, or I could just go Window, Animation Editor, Graph Editor, and I could manipulate that Rotate X curve like this to basically say, hey, you know what, if I just do this, that keeps them on station without having to add a bunch of keys. And in fact, I don't even need this key. I could just go like this, and that would also work. With one key, there, that ball is staying put. And then, I don't know, I'm going to add another key here, just saying, hey, it's still resisting change. It's still thinking about where it was before. It doesn't want to change initially, but gravity is a constant. It's pulling downwards. So eventually, as the character starts going, he's going to start swinging back down again. So this is the kind of thing that we might have going on. And I'm just going to, let's see. So he takes off, and the tail is starting to swing forward. Now, the interesting part is I'm going to go Ghost here at 24, Ghost here at 23. So all objects with mass, they resist change. They want to stay still if they're standing still. But if they're in motion, they want to keep moving, ideally at the same pace that they were moving before, which means at frame 25, even though the body comes to a hard stop, that tail, he's going to want to keep moving through at the same speed. And in fact, because he was also swinging downwards from gravity, there'll actually be even a little bit of extra speed. He'll be speeding up at that point, like that. And the tail will continue to swing through, but gravity is still pulling straight down. So it's going to swing up like this, but it's going to slow down towards the top of the swing. And that's where the graph editor becomes really helpful. Now, I don't feel like going Window, Animation Editor, Graph Editor every time I want to launch the Graph Editor. So I'm going to do another little trick. I think it's Control Shift and then left mouse button, click on Graph Editor, and you'll see it's made a button now on my shelf that allows me to launch the graph editor just by clicking on it. So whenever you have a menu item that you're going through and you want to pull it up, with a shelf button, just do Shift plus Control and then left mouse button, click on the thing, and it'll make a button to launch whatever that shelf option was. And any buttons that you don't want, you can just delete that. So now I've got my graph editor. I can go here and with that tail animation control selected, I could play around with the curves of that as well. And I can move them in time, so I can select a key, and shift and middle mouse drag will allow me to move a key back and forth in time, or shift and middle mouse click and up and down. I can move it up and down. You'll see when I hold down shift and middle mouse click and hold, my cursor turns into this question mark, which basically says, hey, whichever direction you go, I'm only going to let you go in that direction. So do you want to change things in time? Okay, then we're only going to change things in time. Or do you want to change things in value? Okay, we're just going to change things in value. And so it's kind of a handy little tool. Now you'll notice as I update that frame, the BH Ghost doesn't update with it. So BH Ghost is just doing a drawing of that moment in time as it was. If you want to sort of say, okay, make a mark where it is now, you'll have to re-ghost it. If you don't like that ghost there, you don't need it, you can just say, okay, well, bust the one that's right there. So you can go to the frame where the ghost is and say, bust that one. Or if you want to get rid of all your ghosts, you can say bust all, and it'll get rid of all of them. So those are some of the basics. What I'm going to need you to do is I walk through the stuff in class showing you how to get the initial part of the scene going. Now I want you using the graph editor and setting keys to sort of do the overlap, the tail swinging through. And it doesn't need to come to a stop by the end of the scene, and it probably shouldn't. You want that tail to look nice and heavy as if it was made of metal or something like that. It's got a lot of mass, a lot of resistance to change. I want to see how realistically you can get that thing looking like a metal tail swinging based on the initial starting state, that starting at 0 and moving up to frame 24 and coming to a hard stop. So that's the goal of the rigid pendulum. It's mostly just to get you setting some keys on a few simple objects, playing around in the graph editor, getting a good understanding of how those graph curves translate into the movement of objects. Shallow curves are slow movement. Steeper curves are fast movement. You can see it starts swinging one way and it's coming back the other. Then it goes in the opposite direction. It slows down towards the top of the arc. It's going to swing back and forth. And it's going to swing back and forth less and less distance each time. So good luck with that. You're going to have 1 week to sort of work on that. And then in our next class, you'll show me how far you got. I'll give you a little bit of feedback. I'll show you a few tricks to sort of fine tune your animation. And I'm also going to show you how to output that animation. If you go to play blasting your work on the blog, it'll also show you how to do that. That's it. I hope you found this tutorial video helpful. I tried to be as brief and as quick as possible. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share, and I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. Good luck, everybody.